Hello, and welcome to One Spark Stories, the podcast where innovators, creators, and some unsuspecting risk takers share about navigating highs and lows, laughter and tears, and how sometimes all it takes is one spark of inspiration to find your way to happiness. This podcast will leave you inspired to take action on your own purpose as we connect, create, and celebrate unique sparks around the globe, once again proving that it is a small world after all. Oh my goodness, does it feel so good to be back here, getting ready to share more conversations with innovators, those creators, all the people that we often look at and think, man, they've really got it together. And then once we start to pull back the layers, we realize, they're just figuring it out like the rest of us. So I am really excited to bring you even more conversations. Just needed to take a pause for a while. We live in a world that, embraces this sense of urgency and assumption that everything has to be done consistently. I am not that person sometimes. I am human. I am a wife, a mother, a business owner, and there are moments that I need to pause. And so I granted myself that permission for the holidays, and I really hope you did the same. It is okay to set something aside. Just make sure you pick it back up, because the things that bring us joy should never be, sacrificed. So all that rambling aside, I could not be more excited to welcome back Rob Midiri. Rob is somebody I met through a mastermind and has gone on to become a dear friend. Now, this conversation is definitely a little more casual, but it was an opportunity for us to really focus on some of the understated moments in what I'll say is embracing your spark. It's those moments that cause us to take pause, the feelings of failure, the feelings of, am I even doing the right thing? Or that moment of going, I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing. If you haven't yet listened to the conversation with Rob in episode 11, I highly recommend it, but you are going to get a entirely different spin on the conversation this time. So without further ado, I am so excited to welcome back Rob Midiri. Do I dare say fan favorite? I mean, Rob, I'm not even joking when I say that you are up there with the top download episodes for One Spark Stories. I mean, you've definitely made your mark on people. So I am certainly grateful to have you back. Welcome back, Rob.
Thanks, Katie. And, that's a lot of pressure. There's a ton of pressure, and I don't know that I'm quite ready for that.
I think there's a part of me that just feels like you are ready to embrace that moment. I know I always enjoy our conversations. Even this call, we were catching up, and as we're talking, I think we both had that moment like, oh my gosh, why are we recording this? And not so much to share with the world, but more to reflect on ourselves. So today, I couldn't be more excited to talk about just our own growth since you and I last talked. You just got back from a cruise, right?
I did just get back from a cruise.
And it's hard for me to accept that I wasn't on this one because we did meet on another mastermind cruise. But do you mind sharing just a little insight to, as you come back from that event, what was it that you're walking back onto land with?
Yeah, so with the Phoenix Club that's led by Jody Mayberry, they set up a cruise. It was originally going to be a part of the Perch community, which transitioned into the Phoenix Club. And essentially, we were looking to just do a similar concept of a learning at sea type of moment and see what comes out of it. So a few people, Mike Simmons, who has been on the show, was one of the presenters. Lee Kitchen, who was a completely awesome, magical dude, was a presenter.
Magical dude for sure.
Right. And Jody and Jody Mayberry, as well as DeJuan Rivers, who was also a fabulous person.
Yes.
And then Karen Anderson, who is a book publisher and author. She actually, her and her husband wrote the Bezos letters. We're all there presenting. So we got to learn.
I think I've got that. Where did it go? Ta-da! There it is.
You really? That's awesome.
Yes. Actually, fun fact. Do you know who gave this to me?
No,
Lee,
who?
Cockrell.
Get out.
So
Get
yeah,
out.
got well at his event. So yeah, I see it's a small world, Rob. It all keeps coming together. I'm telling you what. Anywho, sorry, squirreled out. Bezos letter. Karen Anderson. Continue.
Well, as she was talking, I was like, no way. No. And then she said that, yeah, her and her husband had worked on or written the Bezos letters. It's like, wow, that is incredible. So, but that just gives you like a little taste of the folks that are involved and the people that you can learn from on these cruises or in these events, which is really, really awesome. And it brings people from different backgrounds, different personalities, different approaches, so that you can really pick and choose the things that you want to take away from it. Jeff Knoll was there as well, and had some really great conversations with him. And one of the questions that I was asked is, "What are you looking to get out of this?" Mm-hmm. And previously, I had always had kind of a mission in my mind, like going to IAPA, what was my mission to do that? Going on the original cruise, what was my mission there? And this time around, I really, really reflected before we got on the ship and realized that some of the most amazing times that we had were these times of spontaneity and serendipity. And I was starting to realize that the more I tried to script things, the more I tried to have this goal-oriented outcome. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because you definitely have to have goals, but I was missing some serendipitous moments. And I think that's really one of the things that was reinforced as I was walking off the ship, is to live for that. Build a structure, but allow for change, allow for serendipity, allow for those fun moments to just come out of anywhere. And yes, one of the things that Jeff Knoll said to Katie and I was, look in front of you, but also look to the sides and look behind you, because you might have just walked past something that you were supposed to take advantage of or act on. So there was just like these little nuggets as you spent one-on-one time with some of the folks on the cruise that just really, really, really struck. So I think that that's a good thing for any mastermind, is that opportunity. Yep. Don't overlook it, and don't sell yourself short, or say, you know what, I might not know anybody here, and don't take advantage of it because you're, an introvert, which is what I am. I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yeah. And okay, first thing I want to clarify, his wife, Katie, is amazing with an amazing name. So I don't want to make it seem confusing, like he's talking about Katie, me, when I'm right here. So no, Katie is his fabulous wife that I got to hang out with on the last cruise. And I think that what Jeff shared with you is so true about, we set this script in motion, and in turn, we're missing all these other possible, I'm going to say addition, a possible spin-off opportunity, because we think it has to look this way. I actually, in my travel planning, so I worked in travel planning for about 10 years now. It started off as just my fun side gig, and now it's morphed into meshing with my business, to where how can I take this opportunity to learn outside and explore the world more. But what I found is that anytime I would put together an itinerary, which is what I thought I had to do when I first started doing travel planning, especially with Disney, families wanted to know, after rope drop, where do I run? Which is after this? What's after that? But the minute you do that, and this may blow your mind, but every once in a while, a ride will shut down and it won't be open. Or there might be this weird, like Florida rainstorm that comes through like a monsoon and stops the parade you plan to see. And it left people feeling like they missed an opportunity. And I actually feel this way about, not to go all into Disney, but like with Genie Plus setup right now, people are so focused on what opportunities they're not getting versus what's right there in front of them. So by eliminating the itineraries, by stepping away from the script, we open ourselves up to that that growth opportunity, the learning and the experience. So what would you say, within those lessons, what was an unexpected experience that you never saw coming and are grateful for during that time?
Um, Overall, the overarching theme was connecting with people and connecting at different levels at different times. And it was never that where, everybody was a group the whole entire time, or everybody was by themselves the whole entire time. It was like this perfect mechanism of vacillating between the two, where you got one-on-one time, and it just seemed, again, back to the serendipity, that people just met up when they needed to, or to have a conversation. So walking up to the gym, we would bump into somebody, and like this awesome conversation would take place, or getting ready to go to dinner, or going out on an excursion and just getting to spend some one-on-one time. And then I also got to spend some one-on-one time with Katie, which is, that's important. And we don't take the time to do that enough. I mean, with two kids and, both with careers and all of that, and sports and all that stuff, you kind of forget to do that. And it was nice to get away for a couple days and be able to spend some time hanging out with the group, each other. And then, her and I would go our own separate ways and hang out with different people. And it was really cool. It was a great experience.
Yes. And the mastermind, going to sea has definitely become where I've started to pivot the learning opportunities and experiences, because you truly do shut down. You get away from the noise. And that's the funny part. I know there are certainly some people that would go in expecting this, this, and this. But when you allow yourself to just have those casual conversations, go to breakfast and suddenly say, you know what? Actually, I'm going to think of this. I think you were at the lunch. There was one day at lunch on the cruise when started off with, I think, 2 or 3 of us at a table and ended up about 8 of us crammed into a circular. It might have even been 10 now that I think of it, in a circular booth, not even elbow to elbow. I'm talking our cheeks were touching all up and down this thing, but we wanted to be, because there was something so powerful in that connection. And if you were to encourage somebody to do a, experience at sea, what would you think would be the biggest myth that you'd have to dispel?
I think a lot of people go into things or looking at it in the sense of, why is this valuable? Reframe your thinking. And I think that that's what these types of things do for you, is that they reframe your thinking. Go into it and say, you know what, I'm going to have a good time. And at a very minimum, you're getting away for a couple of days on a floating hotel that takes you to different islands. So the risk reward proposition is pretty much in your favor. Like, if something better than that comes out of it, then that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose at that point. And if you go into it with the frame of mind of, I'm going to learn something, or I'm going to connect with someone, you don't have to, again, script it so finitely that you're going to connect with this specific person, or you want to learn this specific thing. Be open. And I think that's the biggest piece of it. And let your curiosity take over. I mean, we're both so familiar with being curious people that we both ask questions and questions and questions. And it's the perfect setting to do that, because everybody's curious about something. You wouldn't be there if you weren't curious. I'm curious about, hey, what is a mastermind? I'm curious about, what is a cruise? What is the Dominican Republic like? What is any of it?
Yeah.
Be open, have fun.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because I think one of those biggest fears is there are probably people thinking, I don't want to sit cheek to cheek with anybody, let alone a bunch of people I just meet. And that's very fair. I don't expect you to, but there is something to be said about going into a situation where others have voluntarily made this move out of their own curiosity. So remembering that you're not alone in this being something new. That was the most powerful thing for me, was realizing each step forward, as much as it felt like my first step in a room of experts, we all were moving in a new direction together. So it's really, really powerful. So much so that, again, I've started to transition my own business that direction to help others get that new perspective, quite literally around the world, but also, just through connection. So it's amazing the opportunities that can come out of it and the growth that it opens the doors for. So it's not all pretty, though. There have been some connections and some things that I've learned that I'm like, dang, Katie, you've really been short-sighted sometimes. What would you say when those moments come up? For me, I think of one. I'll mention Jody again, because we've gotten really to be a part of this community with Jody Mayberry. And he works with a lot of different Disney executives, former leaders that are really getting out there to help change the mindset. And recently we were talking, and he mentioned that he was meeting with Dewan Rivers and Joe Rohde. Now, I don't know if anybody here is not familiar with Joe, but he's basically the face of Animal Kingdom, and he's gentleman with the long earring. Incredible. I have respected this man for years. And so I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Tell me more. And Jody said, well, Katie, we were actually talking about you. And I'm like, oh, maybe tell me more or less. I don't know. Right. But he goes on to say how they were talking about different experiences. And when I first was exploring the idea of the podcast, I was going through that. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word. What is it? Where you're just stuck in the process. You're
spinning your tires.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to
neutral.
say it. Like, I just couldn't go anywhere. I'm like, okay, maybe analysis paralysis. That's what it really came down to. Like, is this the right move? Is this the right platform? Kept asking him questions. And, I've shared a little bit about this before, but what hit me with this conversation was Jody said, Joe basically said, well, then that means they just aren't serious about it and don't want to do it. Rob, I'm telling you, my heart, my stomach, my entire being basically hit the floor and melted beyond. I'm like, oh my gosh, this person that I have respected so much basically said, nah, she's not serious about it. It was a moment that I didn't know if I wanted to scream and punch well, no offense, Jody, if you're listening, like, I didn't want to necessarily punch you, but there was a big lesson to come in awareness that sometimes we are our biggest roadblocks. The whole cruise thing, you might want to, but it's like, I don't know. What will people think if I say I'm going to a mastermind? What will people think if I don't do my podcast on the right platform? Guess what? They won't know and they won't care. So really taking those moments, those critical stings, I used to say, take that spark of whatever is burning you and turning it to your burning platform. And I think that's what I've realized I've done with this, is I got out of that self-doubt and been able to move it forward. So, along those same lines, where have those stings been for you in self-growth? I don't want to assume that you've had them, not to say that the almighty Rob isn't perfect, but have there been moments along your own journey that you're like, whoa, maybe I really am stuck in my own head and not allowing myself to move forward?
Oh my gosh, there are so many times that you start to analyze and reevaluate. But a couple things, and to tie this all together, is that everybody has something to give, right? It's simple. Giving is very, very easy to do, and we all have something to learn. And if you look at those two things, you're going to be a beneficial or beneficiary of somebody else's knowledge, and they're going to be a beneficiary of your knowledge as well. So that's an important thing, I think, to consider or to acknowledge as you're making those decisions. And you're not alone, as you pointed out. There's everybody else's. Here's a dad joke or a pun, in the same boat.
Oh man, aren't you the witty one? And this is why it's the top episode. I mean, yeah, obviously, continue with the dad jokes. It's perfect.
Yep, that's where we lost most people.
Oh, there's the drop off.
But in reality, everybody does have something to give, and everybody has something to learn. And if you look at it from that perspective, then again, it's a win-win. You might not be there for you at that point. You might be there for somebody else because they need a takeaway or some knowledge that you have. And then the other component that plays into that and is really important and comes along with all of those stings is that person might be there to tell you something that you need to hear,
yes,
not what you want to hear. And there's a very distinct difference, because think about it. When we line up people or when we go and ask people things, we typically go to the ones that are going to tell us what we want to hear. It's just, that's natural. It's completely natural. I do it all the time. I'm like, yep, I'm not going to ask this person because I know that they're going to tell me something completely contradictory to what I want to hear. So I'm going to avoid that. But some way, somehow they get thrown into that mix anyway, and you're going to hear that, and you're going to continue to hear that until you learn that lesson.
Yes.
And that's, I think, a really, it takes a lot of time to open yourself up to that, because at first it seems like a criticism. But if it's coming from the right person and they have your best interest in mind, it's not necessarily a criticism. It's a lesson to be learned, and something that's important to qualify it in that way.
Yeah, you are spot on. And I don't think, had that conversation had occurred probably a year ago, it would have stopped me in my tracks, quite honestly. It probably I would have shut down, because I was more in that state of, well, I can do this. I don't want to say arrogantly, but I wasn't open to the feedback. I thought I had it figured out, even though inside I was really like, I just am putting on this facade. But once I started to lean into the reality that, you know what, folks, I am still learning. I am growing. I am a work in progress. And I became more receptive to that. You are exactly right that I heard it differently. I heard it and it stung, but it's exactly what I needed to hear, because I had taken action since then. And I think that's part of where Jody brought it up, because I had moved forward. I finally got myself out of that state. And that's the difference between then and now. And I was able to recognize. So moving forward, I hear that little voice of Jody and Joe in the background. And I'm like, don't get yourself stuck. Don't allow yourself to be that person that never moves forward, because you know you do want it. And I encourage anybody to do that. If you ask any visionary, any creative, any professional, any leader, any kid, really, why are you doing this? And they say, well, because I like it, then the feedback will be heard, versus if they say, well, because I have to. I didn't have to make the podcast, but I heard it differently. And yeah, I actually really appreciated Jody sharing that. One, because it shows that level of comfort and conversation that you can have that. But without that sting, we don't recognize, one, how far we have come from moments like that. And two, it'll just light a freaking fire even deeper to say, you know what, I am going to keep going, because I'm not that person. And I won't allow myself to just stop because words hurt. I mean,
yes,
golly, how many times do we let that happen?
Yes. And you start to look for that. You go to the people that you want that feedback from. And even when you know it's going to sting, you source that, because the only way that you're going to grow is seeing it from both sides, right?
Yeah.
You've got to talk to the people that are, you reference it all the time, your personal board of directors. And I've talked to my son and my family about making sure that you have a personal board of directors with you.
Yeah.
But don't stack the table or stack the deck where they're going to always agree with you. You want people that are going to tell you, hey, you know what, that's a really bad decision. Like, I wouldn't do that. That's kind of a bad idea. And you have to start going to them. Look for unbiased opinions.
Yeah.
And go to those people that and tell them, here, this is the situation. You don't need to give context of, okay, this person said this and this person said this. Here are the two things that I'm presented with. What would you do? And then you eliminate most bias and you're going to somebody looking for their knowledge base. And again, they might tell you what you don't want to hear, but they're doing it from a place of compassion, empathy, love, whatever you want to call it. They're giving you the best guidance that they have based on their experience, based on their past, based on the outcomes that they've seen throughout their life, their career, their history.
Yeah. And the biggest piece about that board of directors and all those people that you're thinking of, I know that the ones that seem to have I don't want to say the biggest sting, but the ones that are the most blunt, as we might sometimes want to say, are the ones that oddly feel like they have my best interest at heart. And it seems so weird because there are friends that are like, oh yeah, Katie, you're still doing that thing. That's cool. You're doing great. You want your cheerleaders. You always want to have them in your corner. But it's the ones that are like, that doesn't sound like you. Are you sure about that? Those are the ones that make you take pause and go, oh, they see right through it. And they know that that's not the direction I really want to go. I laugh whenever I think about getting on a call with my coach because anybody could benefit from having some type of ongoing support, mentorship, leadership. Coaches have coaches, right? We all do. And one of the things that I've come to laugh about, I can be in the best daggone mood, happy as could be, like life is good, we're laughing, and it never fails that she asks one question. And it's become a joke where I kind of have that moment of pause, my eyes get real big, and I feel the tears or the body because I'm like, okay, she just tapped into a new area, and it's powerful. But we need that. We need the people that are constantly allowing us to experience discomfort because it's doing, I think, one of two, couple, maybe more things, but you're either expanding or you're shedding. You're expanding your awareness, your growth, your opportunities, or you are releasing something that you thought you had to hold on to. An identity, a friendship, a career path. It's okay to let those things go. And without that diverse crew, you're not going to have somebody call your bluff on it.
Right. It's a moment of enlightenment and, reflection. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And reevaluating what you've done and say, okay, you know what? I need to change directions. I need to, re-strategize what the next 5 years is going to be, what the next 10 years is going to be. If you're not taking time to reevaluate the progress that you've made, the steps that you've taken, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And I know Dan Cockrell talks about it all the time, but self-awareness. And that is one of the most difficult things to do, is to, one, look inside and see what is really going on and what am I doing that is eliciting these outcomes, whether it's a bad relationship, but everybody owns it 50%. If Katie and I are having a bad day, I can't say my wife, Katie.
Yeah. Hey, or us. I don't know.
I mean, maybe I mess up your day too. I don't know.
Oh gosh, I hope not.
But if we're having a bad day, I own half of that. And you can't just blame everybody else for that. So look inside and see what your role was. Yep. And then make adjustments on that and be open to that feedback. And again, that stinging feedback is going to tell you a lot. It's going to make you feel a certain kind of way, but it's going to be very enlightening and help you to either fix that relationship or set a path going forward that you won't make those same mistakes. And I think that we can all learn from that at all ages. And, I talk a lot to, my grandfather and to learn about things. And he's one of the most empathetic people that I've ever met in my life, and has just such great perspective on things, on life in general, and, opinions of things, but not opinions in a vociferous, nasty, or negative way, just opinions. And they're delivered in that frame of mind too, that, this is what I think. And it's not a compelling, you must do this, but it's or think about it this way.
Yep.
Or did you consider this? Or did you put yourself in somebody else's shoes to see what they might be thinking or how you came across? So it's important to just keep doing those self check-ins and evaluating the steps that you need to make to course correct. But also, if you did something well, give yourself a pat on the back.
Right.
There's so many times that we do that's just what the expectation is, and that's what I should have done. Yeah, absolutely. You should do the right thing. You should do the good thing, not always the easy thing, the good thing or the right thing. But when you do, celebrate it.
Yeah.
Celebrate it with others when you see somebody else doing it. It doesn't take a whole lot of energy to just shout somebody out for doing something amazing for you or changing your day or your perspective. And that's, think about it when we go to Disney, we're there for the cast members, right? Like the rides are fun. The food is awesome. The experience is amazing, but that experience is really brought to you by the cast members and not, Space Mountain. Although I love Space Mountain.
Yes. Sorry, my dog's freaking out in the background, of course.
I love that.
Thankfully, my son realized the same thing and pulled the door shut. Oh, life podcasting, I tell you what. But no, it's funny you mentioned the cast members, because so many times, even now, as you say that, there are probably some people that are like, I'm not paying that much to go to Disney for some daggone cast members. But I'm telling you, they are truly what make the magic and make the experience. Absolutely the rides and attractions, but it's the people. It is the level of attentiveness and awareness. And that's exactly what we need to be doing in our everyday lives to one another. And like you said, to ourselves, giving that celebration of self is something we don't do enough of. And the reflection piece is a big one, because we can take all these, I get, oh gosh, I had I'm going to say a person in a leadership position that would have us take all these assessments, the Enneagram, the Myers-Briggs, the color test, all of them. And we shared them. And that was that. It was like, okay, so this is who you all are. And while it's nice, there was no further discussion. Now, for myself, I love exploring that. I love exploring what the different types are, but without context, we can quickly be lost in assuming that identity. I think of my friend Heather, and we were talking just the other week about our Myers-Briggs, and I know you and I had just had this similar conversation, and Heather and I are very, very different in that she is a systems thinker. She is process oriented. There's a reason she thrived in an HR role. Then there's me, the visionary, the motivator. I don't like rules. I don't like, this is going to sound stupid because I have a podcast. I'm not a small talk person. It feels unproductive. Is that not a horrible thing to say? Right? Like, and I don't mean that, like, I will absolutely stop and talk to anybody, but networking and making fake conversation in certain situations is so mind numbing to me. Right? I'm horrible. Just judge me now, because I went
not
depth.
at all. Not at all.
But it's because I went depth, and really what she and I discovered is we mesh so beautifully because of those differences. We could look at our identities and go, we are not meant to be friends. Like, we are not meant to be two peas in a pod. In fact, she's not even growing in a pod. I'm so far out in the field. I'm a fruit hanging from a tree. But what we also recognized was that nature versus nurture piece. She's like, Katie, why is it that I am this systems oriented person? My profile looks very, very impersonal, and yet I'm always in roles where I am leading. And it goes back to, she spent quite a significant part of her career working at Disney in leadership. And I think the environment there was one that wanted to support the relationship development. And so when you get these assessments, acknowledge it for what it is, much like those stings, acknowledge it for what it is, but recognize in others, look at those profiles and see it as an awareness to, wow, we really do function differently. And maybe that is the yin to my yang. Maybe that is why my husband and I butt heads at times, because of certain personality traits. We don't invest enough time in that reflective piece of these identities. So I love that you brought up the value of that self-reflection, because it's every bit as important in this process.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. And one of the really cool things that Lee Kitchen did on the ship, him and Michael Lyons teamed up to create, and I don't want to give too much away. However, you've got to check this out. Essentially, it's based off of Salvador Dali and Walt Disney teaming up to create Destino. And just that collaboration, this unsuspecting collaboration. And he created a whole entire, well, him and Michael created a whole entire session based on that, looking for opposites and seeing what you can build out of that. And it was so unbelievably creative. It was so much fun. I mean, that's where we really got our start, was one of Lee Kitchen's sessions. And it's just such an amazing experience when you let it happen and you don't force it. And to your point of, those shallow conversations, I don't want to say shallow, but you're looking for more genuine conversation, more authenticity. And I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, we all can have, those topical surface conversations. How's the weather? And, go Eagles, because
we're going to edit that out. Anywho, sorry, go ahead. Too soon, Rob. Too soon. Who day?
but those things, we can all do that, right? But it takes a little bit more connecting to be able to have a deeper conversation. And think about today. We jumped on with, hey, let's just see where this goes, and let's record a podcast out of it. I mean, how much fun is that? And what a better way to explore curiosity and serendipity than just hit record and see what flies.
Yeah. Well, so much of our world is automated, or there's algorithms determining what we see and what we think. And it's refreshing to just go with it. I was trying to really quickly think of some kind of witty dad joke pun to be like, just see where the wind blows and set your sails. But that's like way too borderline Hallmark cardy. So I'm going to let it go. But it really is true. And that authentic conversation can't start from small talk. And ours certainly did. When we first met, we didn't know much more than, hey, we're trapped on a ship. Did you try the ice cream yet? Cool. But you eventually realize, is somebody else there for more? And if they're not, that's okay. But I'm going to guess if you've especially made it this far into our conversation, you are one of those people. And it's okay if there are times when you are acknowledging, this doesn't feel right. This conversation, this environment, this experience isn't bringing out my best side. It's so credible. I love that you're acknowledging that. Embrace it. Don't feel bad about it. and think, where can I pivot to where I can surround myself by people that will let me live this truth? Because the ultimate way of finding that happiness is to surround yourself by the people that will challenge you in the right ways, not be the ones that, will shut you down and disrespect you. They'll lift you up by challenging you. There is absolutely a difference, and you can feel it and trust it when you feel it.
Yep, absolutely. And there's always something to be learned and something to be given. And when you're in one of those positions, you don't need to perpetuate that. If you don't like the way that you feel or the way that somebody is treating you, don't turn around and do the same thing, because that's where you've taken that. You can look at that and say, you know what, I didn't like that, and I'm not going to perpetuate it, and I'm going to stand people up. And that's going to be my goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pure way of doing it and acknowledging that.
Yeah. All right, Rob, I want to wrap this one up, and with one quick question. Since you're in this state of enlightenment post-cruise, probably have that beach glow still, what is something that you want people to unlearn, going into this new year, moving forward? What is something really powerful that we could embrace the unlearning of?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, and one of the things that one of the topics I've been talking about is giving. And the thought that giving is financial, or the thought that giving is transactional. It's not. You can give time freely, and you never know how you're going to impact somebody by giving them that time and just listening, just hearing what they have to say. You'll give them that gift, plus you'll get something in return from learning about somebody new. I really think that that's probably one of the most important things that we can do right now.
Yeah, there's so much power in that, because giving doesn't have to be transactional. And I know for me, and well, for both of us, since we're on the call, I'll put us out there, that there have been times where I have to mentally unload, and you have given me that time and space to just release with no expectation in return. And then on the flip side, there will be moments where you're like, okay, here it comes. I got to process this. And it feels, at least for me, I don't want to speak for everybody, but it really truly feels so much more powerful in that reciprocal way versus expecting anything out of it. Because over time, we're both growing. The movement that we're both making, it's there. You just have to let it take its course. Stop trying to rush things, and what is it? Mean Girls, stop trying to make fetch happen, right? Like, you just gotta go with it. So I appreciate you for your time, for the show, for everybody listening, and just for putting the good out there. You're definitely part of the good in the world, Rob. And I can't wait until we get to set sail again. We'll have to get the whole families out there, get Lee, get Jody, get everybody out and set sail and see where the next waves take us. No, that didn't work either.
We'll keep trying. Keep trying.
We'll have to have another episode, and it'll just be locked and loaded. I will script some for that.
Sounds awesome. No, Katie, as always, thank you so much for having me on, and for being a sounding board and allowing me to come and speak my mind.
I always appreciate it. Who knows? Maybe we'll make this a standing thing. The Rob and Katie show.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, okay. See, we were. Hi. It's the other Katie. We were talking about Katie, and I had to assure that it's not just me he's talking about. That there's another Katie in this world.
She exists.
Yeah,
she exists.
I do.
The Rob and Katie show. Now that might have to happen. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I had to take a little break, just really dial in, focus on the family, focus on my own personal development and growth. And I just want to assure you, anytime you're doing something you love and you need that space to kind of step back and reconnect with yourself and others around you, don't hesitate to do so, but do yourself a favor and make sure to pick the things that you love back up. Do not abandon them. Don't take that pause as a permanent vacation from it. keep moving forward, go through it, grow through it. So thank you for allowing me to take that pause and then joining me back on this adventure. There are so many incredible conversations coming your way. Going to switch things up a little bit and invite a few, maybe some younger guests into the crowd, because I think part of helping ourselves reconnect with our own self is going to be reconnecting with our own inner child. And sometimes it's good to hear the voice of a child to remember that perspective as well. So get ready for leaders, movers, shakers, and some of those younger, unsuspecting risk takers. As always, make sure to share this episode with somebody else it might resonate with. Ratings and reviews help get this in front of others, and make sure to continue to take care of yourself. Be well, stay curious, and as always, we'll see you real soon.
Did you know that it's illegal in London to drive a car without sitting in the front seat?
Later, Tater.